Episode 17. My mom stood beside me, gently caressing my back as if soothing a baby to sleep. "Don't worry. You'll be fine," she consoled. I tried to stifle my tears, but they flowed uncontrollably. My dad remained silent, his eyes filled with a deep sadness as he struggled to come to terms with the situation. I realized that men often bury their emotions, and it's no wonder women tend to live longer. Matsi Obiora and his wife, childless at 65, had married me to claim paternity of my child. I felt trapped by tradition, forced to accept a situation that felt so wrong. As we arrived at their home, I couldn't help but notice the humble surroundings. The small, rustic house seemed to lean precariously to one side, as if it were struggling to remain upright. The thatch roof was worn and patchy, allowing glimpses of the sky through the gaps. The walls, made of mud and clay, were cracked and weathered, telling the story of countless seasons of rain and shine. Matsi Obiora and his wife, Nwanika, welcomed me warmly as we entered their home together. Matsi Obiora was a tall, gaunt man in his mid-60s, with a thinning patch of gray hair on his head. His face was lined with deep wrinkles, etched into his skin by years of hard work and struggle. He wore a faded, threadbare shirt and a pair of tattered trousers, which seemed to be held together by sheer force of will. Nwanika, on the other hand, was a petite, frail woman with a kind face and a warm smile. Her hair was gray and closely cropped, and her eyes sparkled with a deep, gentle wisdom. She wore a simple, ankle-length wrapper made of faded cotton, which was wrapped tightly around her thin frame. As we sat down together, I noticed the sparse furnishings of their home. A small wooden table stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a few worn wooden stools. A faint scent of wood smoke and cooking oil hung in the air, mingling with the earthy smell of the surrounding soil. Despite the poverty and simplicity of their surroundings, there was a sense of warmth and hospitality that filled the room, a sense of people who had opened their hearts and home to me. As Nwanika led me to my room, I was struck by her warm hospitality. I had wondered why she and Matsi Obiora didn't have any children, but I didn't feel comfortable asking her about it on our first day together. "Enjoy and relax, okay?" she said, smiling kindly at me. "I know you've made a mistake by having a child out of wedlock, but I promise you that I'll treat you not just as my wife, but as my daughter." "How old are you?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I'm 20, I replied. Nwaneka's expression changed suddenly, and she looked at me with a mixture of sadness and longing. "Exactly the age of my dead child," she whispered, her voice trembling. Before I could respond, she burst into tears. "The nurse said my child died, but I don't know why I still have this feeling that she's alive," she sobbed. I felt a pang of confusion and sympathy for her. I didn't know what to say, so I remained silent as she continued to pour out her emotions. "Nurse Ella, if what I'm thinking is true, may the earth swallow you whole," she cursed, her voice rising in anger. "May anyone who stole my child suffer troubles and hardships all their days." As she spoke, she removed her shoe and stomped her foot on the ground, as if seeking a spiritual connection to amplify her curse. I watched her, feeling a deep sense of pity and unease. "May God fight for me," she added, her voice shaking with emotion. I didn't know what to say or do, so I simply stood there, frozen in silence, as Nwaneka's words hung in the air like a dark and foreboding sea. 3 days had passed since I arrived at Matsi Obiora's home, and yet he had not come to me as a husband. Instead, he and his wife, Nwaneka, treated me with kindness and warmth, more like a daughter than a wife. Their relationship was a beautiful thing to witness. Despite their advanced age, they still looked at each other with eyes of love and adoration. They would often hold hands, and Matsi Obiora would gently pat Nwaneka's hand as they sat together. Their love for each other was palpable, and it filled their home with a sense of warmth and comfort. Nwaneka, in particular, was a motherly figure to me. She would cook my meals, make sure I was comfortable, and even help me with my chores. She would often sit with me and talk, sharing stories about her life and her family. I found myself feeling drawn to her, and I began to see her as a surrogate mother. Matsi Obiora, on the other hand, was more reserved. He would smile at me and nod in greeting, but he rarely spoke to me. I began to wonder if he was shy or if there was something else at play. Despite his reserve, I could sense a deep kindness in him, and I felt grateful to be in their home. As the days passed, I found myself feeling more and more at home with Matsi Obiora and Wanaka. They treated me with love and respect, and I began to feel like I was part of their family. But despite the warmth and kindness they showed me, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to their story, something that they weren't telling me. To be continued. A story written by Ani and Okonkwo, all right reserved.